There's a subtle current in the modern world, an almost invisible tide that pulls us relentlessly towards acquisition. We are barraged by messages, by flashing lights and tempting offers, all designed to cultivate a single overriding instinct to consume. From the moment we open our eyes to the digital hum of our devices, we are immersed in a culture that champions consumption as the path to happiness, to status, to fulfillment. We are taught to want, to buy, to accumulate, and in this endless cycle of acquiring, something profound is lost. The understanding of true value, the power of delayed gratification, and the strategic foresight that separates those who merely spend from those who build. We become expert consumers, chasing fleeting pleasures and external validations, often at the expense of our future, our freedom, and our deepest aspirations. But what if there was another way to engage with the world, a fundamental shift in perspective that could unlock unimaginable abundance and enduring wealth? Imagine for a moment the titans of industry, the visionaries who built empires, the minds that reshaped economies. Did Andrew Carnegie become the steel magnate by simply buying more, by indulging in every immediate desire? Did Henry Ford revolutionize transportation by prioritizing fleeting trends over foundational investments? Did the great financial minds of history amass their fortunes by merely reacting to the latest sales, by chasing every new gadget? No. Their ascent, their enduring legacy was forged in a different crucible, illuminated by a different kind of thought process, the mindset of an investor, not just a consumer. This isn't just about money, though it profoundly impacts it. This is about a way of thinking, a philosophy of life that prioritizes growth over immediate gratification, long-term value over short-term pleasure, and strategic building over passive acquisition. The consumer mind lives in the present, driven by impulse, by emotion, by the immediate allure of what can be acquired now. It sees resources, be they money, time, energy, or attention, as something to be spent, to be used up to fulfill an immediate craving. It is reactive, constantly responding to external stimuli, to the latest advertisement, to the newest trend. It is often a mindset of scarcity, driven by the fear of missing out, by the need to keep up, by a subtle sense of inadequacy that endless consumption attempts to fill. This is the subtle trap that keeps many from ever truly building wealth, not just financially, but in every dimension of their lives. It keeps them tethered to the treadmill of earning just enough to spend, never truly accumulating, never truly leveraging their resources for exponential growth. The investor mind, by stark contrast, operates from a place of foresight. It sees resources not as something to be depleted, but as seeds to be planted, assets to be leveraged, capital to be deployed for future returns. It understands that true value often lies not in what is immediate, but in what can be cultivated over time. It is proactive, analytical, and patient. It asks fundamental questions. How can this resource generate more? How can this time be used to build a skill that pays dividends for decades? How can this money compound to create true freedom? This is a mindset of abundance, driven by vision, by strategy, and by an unshakable belief in the power of delayed gratification. It understands that the greatest gains are rarely found in instant fixes, but in the compound effect of strategic decisions made consistently over time. This fundamental shift begins with a radical reevaluation of how you perceive time. The consumer mind sees time as something to be filled, to be entertained, to be passed. It fritters away hours on fleeting distractions, on endless scrolling, on activities that offer immediate but ultimately hollow gratification. It prioritizes the present moment's comfort over the future's potential. But the investor mind understands that time is your most precious non-renewable asset. It cannot be earned back, only spent. And how you choose to spend it is the most critical investment decision you will ever make. Every hour you allocate to learning a new skill, building a new connection, creating a new asset, or strategizing your next move is an investment. Every hour lost to mindless distraction, to passive consumption, to unexamined habits is a missed opportunity, a squandered piece of your finite future. Think of the pioneers of any field. Did they become masters by simply watching others, by passively consuming information? No. Thomas Edison notoriously worked for days on end, often sleeping on his laboratory bench, driven by an insatiable hunger to create, to invent, to build. He invested his time, every waking moment, into experimentation, refinement, and relentless problem solving. He saw time not as a commodity to be spent, but as the raw material for innovation. This perspective is not about grinding endlessly without purpose. It's about making conscious choices about how your finite moments are deployed. It's about asking yourself with brutal honesty if the activity you're engaging in now is a consumption of your time or an investment in your future. This mindful allocation of your most precious resource is the bedrock upon which all other investor-minded decisions are built. Following this, the investor mindset applies the same rigorous scrutiny to energy. The consumer expends energy haphazardly, often reacting to external demands, allowing their vitality to be drained by trivialities, by gossip, by things that do not move them closer to their goals. They consume processed foods that deplete their physical energy, engage in mental habits that drain their emotional reserves, and surround themselves with negativity that siphons their spiritual force. Their energy is a tap left running, slowly draining away without conscious direction. The investor, however, recognizes energy as a vital form of capital, one that must be protected, cultivated, and strategically deployed. They understand that peak performance, sustained focus, and creative output are impossible without a robust reserve of energy, physical, mental, and emotional. They invest in their well-being through disciplined sleep, nourishing food, regular exercise, mindful practices, and careful curation of their environment and relationships. They consciously choose to disengage from energy drains and seek out energy sources. Think of a marathon runner who meticulously manages their nutrition, sleep, and training to optimize their physical energy for the race. Or a highly successful executive who prioritizes mental clarity and emotional resilience to navigate high-stakes decisions. This isn't merely self-care. It's a strategic investment in their most fundamental resource, ensuring they have the vitality to pursue their ambitious goals and execute their long-term vision. Every choice you make about your diet, your sleep, your emotional reactions, and your social interactions is either a consumption or an investment of your precious energy. The investor always chooses the latter. This disciplined approach extends crucially to attention. In our hyper-stimulated, information-saturated world, attention has become the new gold. The consumer mind is a battlefield for competing interests, constantly pulled in multiple directions, easily distracted by notifications, clickbait, and the endless scroll. It consumes content passively, allowing its focus to be fragmented, its mental landscape cluttered by noise. Its attention is perpetually for sale, easily diverted by the next shiny object, leaving little capacity for deep work, sustained thought, or true creativity. This constant consumption of fleeting information without discernment or strategic integration leads to mental fatigue and a profound lack of intellectual capital. The investor mind, conversely, guards its attention with fierce intentionality. It understands that where attention goes, energy flows, and results show. It treats attention as a finite, incredibly valuable resource that must be strategically deployed. It chooses to invest its attention in deep work, in complex problem solving, in learning and creating that yields high returns. It consciously filters out distractions, cultivates periods of uninterrupted focus, and engages with information actively, critically, and with a clear purpose. Think of a chess grandmaster. Their attention razor sharp, focused entirely on the board, anticipating moves, visualizing outcomes, blocking out all extraneous noise. This isn't just about discipline. It's about recognizing that sustained, concentrated attention is the forge in which significant achievements are crafted. Every moment you choose to direct your focus away from distraction and towards a meaningful task is an investment in your mental capital, building pathways for deeper understanding and greater output. This discerning application of attention is a hallmark of truly productive and impactful individuals. Beyond these fundamental resources, the investor mind applies its strategic lens to relationships. The consumer approach to relationships can be transactional, superficial, or driven by immediate emotional needs. It might focus on what others can provide instantly, or dissipate energy in fleeting social engagements that lack depth or genuine connection. It consumes companionship without necessarily cultivating deep reciprocal bonds. The investor, however, sees relationships as invaluable assets, requiring conscious cultivation and strategic nurturing. They understand that true wealth, in all its forms, is built upon strong, trust-based networks. They invest in meaningful connections by actively listening, by offering value without expectation, by seeking out mentors who can accelerate their growth, and by building masterminds with peers who challenge and uplift them. Think of the legendary figures who built empires, not alone, but through powerful alliances. Andrew Carnegie surrounded himself with brilliant minds, leveraging their collective intelligence and shared ambition. Napoleon Hill, in his Exploration of Success, constantly emphasized the power of the mastermind alliance. This is a deliberate, long-term approach to human connection, understanding that the greatest returns often come from collaborative effort, shared vision, and mutual support. Every act of genuine connection, every moment spent building trust, every thoughtful contribution to another's success is an investment that yields dividends far beyond immediate gratification. It's about building a robust human ecosystem that supports your growth and amplifies your impact. This profound shift from consumer to investor thinking ultimately shapes your relationship with knowledge and learning. The consumer passively absorbs information, consuming endless streams of content without critical analysis or practical application. They collect facts, watch tutorials, and read books, but rarely integrate this knowledge into their actions or transform it into tangible outcomes. Their minds become cluttered archives of unapplied data, leading to intellectual bloat rather than wisdom. They consume knowledge for entertainment or surface-level understanding, not for mastery or strategic advantage. The investor, on the other hand, approaches knowledge as capital to be acquired, processed, and leveraged. They don't just read, they study. They don't just watch, they analyze and synthesize. They don't just learn, they apply. Their learning is deliberate and purpose-driven, aimed at solving specific problems, developing new skills, or expanding their capacity for strategic thinking. They understand that true knowledge is not just what you know, but what you can do with what you know. They invest in courses, books, mentorship, and experiences that provide high-value insights directly applicable to their goals. They relentlessly seek patterns, extract principles, and integrate new information into their existing mental models, thereby increasing their intellectual capital. Think of Benjamin Franklin, who not only read voraciously, but famously formed a Junto Club to critically discuss and apply what they learned. This is active learning, learning for leverage, learning as an investment in future capabilities and opportunities. Every piece of information you truly absorb and apply becomes an asset, compounding over time to enhance your decision-making, innovation, and problem-solving abilities. This analytical, long-term perspective naturally extends to financial capital, the most obvious yet often misunderstood arena where investor thinking contrasts with consumer habits. The consumer views money as something to be spent immediately to satisfy desires or to alleviate temporary discomfort. Their financial decisions are often reactive, driven by advertising, social pressure, or emotional impulses. They prioritize depreciating assets, new cars, fashionable clothes, fleeting experiences, over appreciating ones. Their financial flow is primarily outbound, a constant drain without a strategic plan for replenishment and growth. The investor, however, views money as a tool, a resource to be managed, preserved, and grown. They prioritize saving and investing over spending, understanding the immense power of compound interest, the silent engine of true wealth creation. They meticulously plan their expenditures, differentiate between needs and wants, and consciously defer gratification to build a foundation of financial security and future freedom. They invest in assets that generate income or appreciate in value. Businesses, real estate, stocks, education that enhances earning potential. They understand that every dollar saved and invested today is a seed planted for a future harvest, a tiny army working tirelessly on their behalf. Think of Warren Buffett, renowned not for his lavish spending, but for his relentless focus on long-term, value-driven investments, allowing capital to compound exponentially over decades. This isn't deprivation, it's liberation. Freedom from financial anxiety and the creation of choice. Every dollar you choose to invest, rather than merely consume, is a vote for your future self, a powerful declaration of financial sovereignty. This investor mindset even applies to how you approach failure and setbacks. The consumer views failure as a definitive end, a personal indictment, a reason to quit. They consume the negative emotions of disappointment, shame, and frustration, allowing these feelings to deplete their energy and solidify their belief in their own limitations. They become a victim of circumstances, seeing every stumble as proof that they don't have what it takes. Their narrative is one of defeat leading to withdrawal and inaction. The investor, by contrast, views failure as invaluable feedback and a strategic learning opportunity. They understand that every setback contains a lesson. Every mistake illuminates a path to improvement. Every apparent loss is an investment in future wisdom. They don't consume the emotion of failure. They process it, extract the insights, and then pivot. They analyze what went wrong, identify underlying assumptions that proved incorrect, and refine their strategy for the next attempt. Think of any inventor or entrepreneur who faced countless rejections, bankruptcies, or failed prototypes before achieving success. They didn't quit. They iterated. They didn't see failure as an end, but as an essential part of the discovery process, a necessary investment in finding the right solution. This resilience, this ability to extract value from adversity, is a hallmark of the investor mentality, transforming potential defeats into powerful accelerants for growth and ultimate triumph. They understand that the true cost of failure is not in the event itself, but in the failure to learn from it. Furthermore, this investor's lens extends to the often overlooked realm of emotional intelligence and self-regulation. The consumer often allows their emotions to dictate their responses, reacting impulsively to stress, frustration, or external triggers. They might consume comforting but ultimately unhelpful habits, overeating, excessive screen time, emotional outbursts, in an attempt to manage discomfort. Their emotional state is often a liability subject to external forces. The investor, however, recognizes their emotional landscape as a crucial internal asset that requires strategic management. They invest in practices that cultivate emotional resilience, clarity, and control. Mindfulness, meditation, journaling, seeking constructive outlets for stress, and developing healthy coping mechanisms. They learn to observe their emotions without being consumed by them, allowing them to make decisions based on logic and long-term vision rather than fleeting impulse. They understand that managing their internal state is just as vital as managing external resources, because a cluttered or chaotic emotional landscape severely hampers focus, decision-making, and sustained effort. This self-mastery over one's own emotional reactions is a powerful investment that pays dividends in every area of life, leading to greater peace, clarity, and effective action. It's about transforming emotional reactivity into emotional intelligence, turning potential liabilities into powerful strengths. This comprehensive investor mindset, spanning time, energy, attention, relationships, knowledge, finances, and emotions, culminates in the profound act of creating rather than merely consuming. The consumer is a receiver, waiting for value to be delivered to them. They watch, they listen, they buy. The investor, by contrast, is a producer, an architect of value. They actively build, innovate, solve problems, and contribute. They understand that true wealth is not just in what you accumulate, but in what you create and offer to the world. Think of the distinction between consuming art and creating it, consuming food versus cultivating it, watching a business unfold versus building one. The act of creation is inherently an act of investment. It requires foresight, effort, discipline, and a willingness to put something of yourself out into the world. It's an investment of your time, energy, attention, knowledge, and passion with the expectation of generating something new, something valuable, something that resonates beyond your immediate self. This is the ultimate expression of the investor mindset, transforming raw potential into tangible reality, turning vision into value. And finally, this shift in perspective leads to a deep understanding of legacy. The consumer's impact is often fleeting, measured by transient possessions and immediate gratifications. Their story is largely one of what they took, what they acquired. The investor, however, thinks in terms of enduring impact. They build structures, create systems, develop ideas, and foster relationships that continue to generate value long after their direct involvement ceases. They invest in something larger than themselves, something that will outlive them and continue to serve future generations. Consider the enduring principles taught by Napoleon Hill himself. His work, born from years of meticulous research and dedication, was an investment in knowledge and wisdom designed to empower millions for generations. He didn't merely consume the success stories of others, he synthesized them, extracted their underlying principles, and created a timeless framework for achievement. That is the power of thinking like an investor in every aspect of your life. It transforms your daily choices from mere expenditures into strategic deployments of capital, whether that capital is time, energy, attention, relationships, knowledge, finances, or emotions, all directed towards building a future of immense value and a legacy of profound impact. The choice is now yours. Will you remain tethered to the endless cycle of consumption, constantly chasing the next fleeting pleasure, passively allowing your most precious resources to drain away? Or will you awaken to your true power as an investor in your own life? Will you consciously choose to plant seeds today for the mighty oak you wish to become tomorrow? Will you guard your time, your energy, your attention, and your relationships as sacred capital, deploying them with strategic intent? Will you learn not just for knowledge, but for leverage? Will you embrace failures as investments in wisdom? And will you commit to the profound act of creation, building a life of purpose, abundance, and lasting significance? The future you desire is not found in what you consume, but in what you choose to invest. Begin that investment today. The returns are limitless. This comprehensive investor mindset, spanning time, energy, attention, relationships, knowledge, finances, and emotions, culminates in the profound act of creating rather than merely consuming. The consumer is a receiver waiting for value to be delivered to them. They watch, they listen, they buy. The investor, by contrast, is a producer, an architect of value. They actively build, innovate, solve problems, and contribute. They understand that true wealth is not just in what you accumulate, but in what you create and offer to the world. Think of the distinction between consuming art and creating it, consuming food versus cultivating it, watching a business unfold versus building one. The act of creation is inherently an act of investment. It requires foresight, effort, discipline, and a willingness to put something of yourself out into the world. It's an investment of your time, energy, attention, knowledge, and passion with the expectation of generating something new, something valuable, something that resonates beyond your immediate self. This is the ultimate expression of the investor mindset, transforming raw potential into tangible reality, turning vision into value. And finally, this shift in perspective leads to a deep understanding of legacy. The consumer's impact is often fleeting, measured by transient possessions and immediate gratifications. Their story is largely one of what they took, what they acquired. The investor, however, thinks in terms of enduring impact. They build structures, create systems, develop ideas, and foster relationships that continue to generate value long after their direct involvement ceases. They invest in something larger than themselves, something that will outlive them and continue to serve future generations. Consider the enduring principles taught by Napoleon Hill himself. His work, born from years of meticulous research and dedication, was an investment in knowledge and wisdom, designed to empower millions for generations. He didn't merely consume the success stories of others, he synthesized them, extracted their underlying principles, and created a timeless framework for achievement. That is the power of thinking like an investor in every aspect of your life. It transforms your daily choices from mere expenditures into strategic deployments of capital, whether that capital is time, energy, attention, relationships, knowledge, finances, or emotions, all directed towards building a future of immense value and a legacy of profound impact. The compounding power of this investor's lens extends far beyond the financial realm. Every minute you invest in deep, focused learning on a new skill compounds not just in knowledge, but in your ability to solve complex problems, to innovate, and to connect disparate ideas. Every intentional conversation you invest in with a mentor or a mastermind group compounds, building an invaluable network of wisdom and support that can propel you forward exponentially. Every hour you invest in cultivating your physical and mental well-being compounds, granting you the sustained energy and clarity required for high-level performance and resilience in the face of adversity. This isn't just about financial riches. It's about building a life rich in experience, in capability, in connection, and in profound purpose. It's about creating an inner reserve of strength, wisdom, and resourcefulness that makes you immune to the fleeting whims of circumstance. This fundamental reorientation is not just a change in behavior. It is a profound identity shift. You move from being a reactive consumer, passively accepting what the world throws at you, to becoming a proactive investor, consciously shaping your reality. You shed the identity of someone who is perpetually behind or lacking, and step into the role of a creator, an architect of your own destiny. This transformation is deeply empowering, dissolving the subtle sense of victimhood that often accompanies a consumer mindset and replacing it with an unshakable sense of agency and personal sovereignty. You are no longer merely spending your life. You are actively building it, brick by deliberate brick, investment by intentional investment. The ultimate payoff of embracing this investor mindset is not just wealth, but genuine freedom. Freedom from debt, yes, but also freedom from the tyranny of impulse, freedom from societal pressure, freedom from limiting beliefs, and freedom to pursue your highest aspirations without compromise. It's the freedom that comes from knowing you are in command of your resources, your decisions, and your future. It's the profound liberation of being a master of your own destiny rather than a pawn in someone else's game. This freedom is the greatest return on investment you could ever hope to achieve. The choice is now yours. Will you remain tethered to the endless cycle of consumption, constantly chasing the next fleeting pleasure, passively allowing your most precious resources to drain away? Or will you awaken to your true power as an investor in your own life? Will you consciously choose to plant seeds today for the mighty oak you wish to become tomorrow? Will you guard your time, your energy, your attention, and your relationships as sacred capital, deploying them with strategic intent? Will you learn not just for knowledge, but for leverage? Will you embrace failures as investments in wisdom? And will you commit to the profound act of creation, building a life of purpose, abundance, and lasting significance? The future you desire is not found in what you consume, but in what you choose to invest. Begin that investment today. The returns are limitless.